Six was amazing. Six was super fun. And I thought maybe I'd booked tickets to the wrong thing because it's one of these live broadcast cinema, theater to cinema type numbers. And I sat down, I'm ready to watch this musical. And then they said, and now we're going to show you the documentary of the making of Six. And I was like, oh, I've gone wrong. But it was, I think, because when you're in the cinema, they don't have the interval and so on and so on. Right. In order to kind of make the runtime feel like value for money, they give you these extras. So as well as seeing the actual, musical, I got to see a thing about the musical. And the people who did it were like these two uni students, and they just
Toby and Lucy
turned it out. Yeah. Oh God, you know them. First name
basis. I know them. I can't remember the surnames.
Fabulous.
I bow down to them. They're amazing.
They so impressive and so full of fun and joy. I really truly enjoyed it. And I think I tried to read Wolf Hall and I realized I was not smart enough for that. So I tried to watch Wolf Hall and I also wasn't smart enough for that. But then I thought, no, come on, take yourself in hand here. You can do this. So I sat down to watch it again with a bit more focus. Yeah. And I did actually enjoy it once I trusted the process that I was going to understand the characters. And having that knowledge of that history, albeit only through the filter of a fictionalized television show, I felt like I could understand and enjoy the musical more. Like there were some little in-jokes and I was like, I get the in-jokes. Oh, it was very good. Very, very good indeed.
Because Lucy and Toby, my friends, they have got a new musical called Why Am I So Single? And it's just finished its West End run and it looks phenomenal. It looks so good.
I remember you saying that you would like to see that, and I had no knowledge of them or of any of that.
Musical. It's their second one, I think. So.
And would I be right in saying this one is not historical?
No, it's just modern dating. Yeah.
Oh,
it's like
God.
Gen Z dating.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
That sounds rough.
But it's funny from what I've seen. I feel like I've seen it because it's on Instagram so much, but from what I've seen, it's an absolute hoot. But yeah,
I believe you. They're funny.
Yeah, that would be cool. Yeah. Okay, are you ready?
I am ready.
Kick it off.
We'll probably get a power cut or something because this whole enterprise has been a little bit doomed.
She's
but
tricksy,
let's
isn't
do
she?
it. She is, yeah. There's something going on.
Hi, Cara.
Hi, Vicky.
Hi, how are you?
Yes, I am well, thank you. I'm ready to discuss our friend Artemisia Gentileschi. Did you see how I just did the name then? No hesitation?
You're so slick just
I'm committing.
Let's commit this to the rest of the pod. So welcome to She Changed History. We've got lovely Cara with us today. And Cara's got a fabulous story. We're going to Italy, right?
We are. We're going to Rome in the 16th century. But before we start, a bit of a serious note. The story today contains references to sexual assault and rape, and we won't dwell on it, but it is a fact of the life of the woman we're talking about. So if you want to skip this one, look after your own well-being, that is fine. We'll be here again next week with something else. So that being said, let's begin. And I'll start with this. What does a Baroque painter from 16th century Italy have in common with Catherine Ryan? What similarities are there between her and Judith Leister, who we learned about in episode 24 of She Changed History? What can we understand about their lives and work, about how the arts benefit from the determination of these pioneering women to take their place at the table? Let's meet painter and iconoclast Artemisia Gentileschi. And our sources for today are Google Arts and Culture, the Crimson blog, and the websites of the National Gallery in London, the Liverpool Museum, the Victoria and Albert Museum, and the Portrait Society of Atlanta.
Nice.
So, Artemisia Gentileschi was born in Rome, Italy on the 8th of July, 1593, which means, apart from everything else that's amazing about her, she shares a birthday with my husband.
Aww.
Yes, He's not a Baroque art master, though, so we're going to move on from him and talk
that's really
about her.
disappointing, Paul, actually.
I know. There's still time. He might turn it around.
That's true.
We'll see what he does next.
We're treating him like written off, but that's not fair.
Yeah, let's give him a chance. Although, to be fair, she started a lot younger than his current age, so
maybe this is
anyway
his retirement thing. He was on about
it could be his third act. You just never know.
100%.
She, however, was born into a family who had an established artist as a father, and she was born in the capital of Italy at a time when Italian art was absolutely thriving. So lots of parallels with Judith Leyster.
Yeah.
And I think it makes me wonder if having those connections, being in the right place at the right time, is one of the factors that lets these breakthrough women artists succeed.
Yeah, without a doubt, because it sounds like it was really similar from the Dutch Golden Age that we spoke about a couple of weeks ago. And that was millions of paintings. Like the volume is insane. So if there's that much output and productivity, some of that has to be women, right? Or has to be minorities of some type.
Statistically speaking, and she definitely bears that out. I think where Judith Leyster was right in the crest of the wave, I think that Artemisia was kind of coming in after the time when a lot of groundbreaking work had been done. So she's coming in after the Renaissance, the Ninja Turtle artist period, if you like. They were out there putting Italy on the map, and then she comes along at a time when the prevailing art style is the Baroque style. The V&A has given us a helpful definition of Baroque, which I have sent to you if you'd like to read that.
Yeah, sure. Quote. A defining characteristic of Baroque style was the way in which the visual arts of painting, sculpture, and architecture were brought together into a complete whole to convey a single message or meaning. Baroque art and design addresses the viewer's senses directly, appealing to the emotions as well as the intellect. It reflected the hierarchical and patriarchal society of the time, to persuade as well as impress, to be both rich and meaningful. Baroque is known for its movement and drama, unquote.
Yes.
So maybe it is quite male, because hierarchical and patriarchal.
Yes, definitely. That is the prevailing movement of the time, really reflecting those values. But much like the Dutch period that you were talking about, perhaps moving away from a more literal interpretation of biblical scenes, say, and starting to add a little bit of narrative around them. And that's going to become important when we talk about her work, which we will do in a moment. She is stepping onto the scene with these incredibly successful people all around her, her father included. But although she did manage to kind of hook into some opportunities, life wasn't necessarily all that easy for her personally. She's just 12 years old when her mother dies, and she has 3 male siblings, and then it falls to her to be looking after them because she's the woman in the family now.
Yeah.
And in spite of that, in spite of those responsibilities and expectations, she must have been quite skillful and quite persuasive because her father allowed her to train in his studio.
Yeah.
And very young, there's a letter from her father to his pal, the Grand Duchess of Tuscany. And that's in 1612 when Artemisia is 19. And he says in that letter that she had already been painting for 3 years at that point. So, yeah.
If her do it as a hobby or if it was intentional, I wonder.
Clear. I think having the opportunity there, having the materials there, but even still, you get the sense from the source material that they were a wealthy family and that he was quite well established. But the materials at the time were incredibly expensive, the pigments that went into these paints. So, I mean, at minimum, he was an indulgent father.
Which is not a
and
bad
perhaps
thing.
At best, we could all use one of them. But at best, he actually saw something in her. And we'll talk more, as I say, about her technical ability, her actual work. before we get there, unfortunately, we do need to address some of the more difficult details from her own history. So in 1611, Artemisia was raped by a visitor staying at the family home. He, according to some of the sources, was hired to be her teacher. At any rate, he was a guest, and she was just 18. So this is a man, an adult man. I am consciously choosing not to say his name because why should we remember his name? And she, at any rate, had him in her home and had this terrible thing happen to her. And as maybe a further example of her father being a decent person, atypically, the family decided that they were going to press charges against the attacker. Yeah. So they pushed on with this legally. And unfortunately, because of the culture in the time, the process of pursuing it through the courts was grueling. Yeah. The rapist and Artemisia are both questioned for more than 8 months. It is a matter of kind of public spectacle. Artemisia's testimony is even subject to torture using a device called the Sibyl, which is a rope that's wound around the fingers and then tightened to cause pain, which I guess, I don't know what.
Her.
They tortured her. And I think, I can't understand either. I think that the hope is that if someone continues to say the same thing whilst being tortured, that it must somehow be true because they're sticking with it.
Like an old-fashioned lie detector. Yeah.
I guess. In any rate, the court records are still available. And we have a quote from her here saying what she said whilst the Sibyl was being used on her.
So she says, quote, "I have told the truth and I always will, because it is true and I am here to confirm it where necessary." Then, turning to the accused who had falsely promised her marriage after the rape, "The Sibyl is the ring that you give me and these are your promises." Ugh. So he wanted to marry her as well.
Yeah. So that's going to make it right in his mind. Disgusting. Absolutely, absolutely unacceptable. And she's having none of it. She's not to be silenced. She's not to be tricked. She is going to go about this her own way and put him where he belongs. And at the time of her trial, just to kind of show you the mindset of the woman we're dealing with. She's only 19 years old. She wrote to a patron of hers in Sicily, and this is a quote from that letter.
Quote, "I will show you, illustrious lordship, what a woman can do. You will find the spirit of Caesar in the soul of a woman." Unquote. Oof, hello. That's exciting.
She is absolutely a force and defiant in the face of what's going on with her. Yeah. And
what a woman can do is quite a strong sentence today, isn't it? If you had that on your wall, you'd be like, yes, absolutely.
And that just the bit about, this is probably, I shouldn't say this, but the bit about you'll find the spirit of Caesar in the soul of a woman reminds me of Blackadder with Queenie. Saying, I may have the body of a woman, but I have the stomach and the spirit of an iron elephant or something like that. Anyway, eventually, this horrible man is found guilty. He is then sentenced to banishment from Rome. Unfortunately, though, that sentence is never enforced.
Well, so banishment isn't...
Yeah, we talked about this before, and you were like, big whoop. You've told him he can't live in town anymore. And then they don't even follow through with it. It's like, come on, weak sauce.
After a year or so of grueling.
Her putting herself out there.
Yeah. Because she had more to lose than him, didn't she?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And in the end, he basically lost nothing. She did not let that stop her. The day after the trial, literally the day after, she married her sweetheart, who is a fellow painter. And maybe they knew that something was going to go down because they then moved to Florence immediately. And
so she left.
She left. She was like, okay.
She was like, I don't believe in your banishment.
off
Let's
she
take myself
goes to
off. Yeah.
Florence with her new husband to start her own career. And
Yes.
her work is, technically speaking, excellent. There are several paintings that I've included in this document for us to talk about, which maybe is a little bit of a weird thing to do in a podcast where it's an audio medium, but we're in it.
we always put them on Instagram anyway. So if you
Yes,
want
that's
to look at the
fabulous.
paintings, look on Instagram and Facebook and they'll be there. 100%.
Wonderful. That's brilliant because they are worth seeing. The first one that is included here is her self-portrait as the allegory of painting, which we were lucky enough, Vicky and I, to see in the Tate's Now You See Us exhibition in the flesh. That exhibition was fabulous. It was all about overlooked or revolutionary women artists, and there was just rooms and rooms and rooms and rooms of it. We nearly didn't make our bus home. We were so surprised by how much material was there. But this specific painting has a brunette white woman leaning towards the viewer, and she's looking at something distant. Her hair is tumbling down. She's holding a paintbrush. She's holding a palette. She's wearing these beautiful silk gowns, and on her neck, a chain with a little mask pendant. And I'm picking these details out because they aren't random. In the Baroque period, iconography, so the representation of these images that were imbued with more meaning, was serious business. They had a book called the Iconologia of Caesar Ripa, and that was there to tell them, this is what this saint looks like. This is what this allegorical figure looks like. And in this painting was supposed to be a woman with dark, wild hair and a gold chain with a mask on it. And it was supposed to have a gag covering her mouth. And I think it's super interesting that Artemisia has left the mouth covering off. Maybe I'm just reading too much into it. Because
no, I agree. I think with what we've learned about her so far, that's not a step too far.
We will talk about another self-portrait, the allegory of painting the woman in the image, if I wasn't clear, very much Artemisia painting herself in that role.
That's a self-portrait. Yeah.
This second portrait that we're going to talk about is, it is actually called Self-Portrait as St. Catherine of Alexandria. And this is one that's held in the National Gallery in London. It's a Caucasian brunette. Oh, yeah. She's holding a spiked, broken wheel, which looks kind of like a wagon wheel, but it was an instrument of torture. They were all about the torture, weren't they, in this time? She just has this look of steady, calm, I'm going to say disappointment. Like she's a bit unimpressed.
When a parent says, I'm not mad, I'm disappointed. That is what she's just said.
You know you've done wrong when somebody's looking at you like this. And I think those things we know about her past really help us understand perhaps what emotions are being conveyed through these images.
This is what I struggle with in galleries and stuff, because you can't get all this rich context to her and her background from a little plaque underneath the paintings. You know, and I know galleries do their best, and I'm not here disparaging what the galleries do, but knowing all that I know now about that first painting, the one that we saw in the Tate, I feel completely differently about it now. And it's like, well, I've learned because of what she's been through, you know.
It is difficult, isn't it? And I think sometimes you're walking around the gallery and you're taking stuff in visually and maybe just sort of like filing it away, banking it in your mind.
Because there's so much.
Because there is so much. And then later on, you might get some little detail or some little nugget or historical fact, and you'll go, oh, that's why all those paintings had lemons in them or whatever, whatever it may be. You're just suddenly a little thing is unlocked and your brain goes, oh, yum, yum, yum. Thank you very much. And I think these historical facts about her do give you a context that, looking at the painting in the flesh, I'm like, I didn't know. I didn't read the Iconologia of Caesar Ripa. I don't know she's meant to have a gag over her mouth. Yeah, it's really cool to come back and reflect on things like that.
It is, and I really like this idea of how do you say iconol?
how I'm choosing to say it, probably incorrectly, is the iconologia. I think that's how I was.
Is that it feels quite universal. Like it could have been a Dutch painter or a French painter or an African painter, but it seems like a Bible that everyone can get on board with quite happily because you didn't choose that gag, whether you're from here, there, or anywhere, you'll be able to see that that was a decision and the decision probably means X.
Right.
And I think that's really beautiful. I love that.
I think it also speaks to something that you guys talked about when you spoke about Grace O'Malley, which is that there is a set of rules and the decision to go against them is a conscious choice. I think, the thing you were talking about is to look at the rules and say, nah, those rules are stupid. I'm not doing that. Is a bold choice and obviously capable.
I wish I had more of that in me. 100%. I'm such
rules are there for a reason. I'm a bit of a control and rules enthusiast myself. So yes, I could use a little bit more defiance in my life. Yeah, maybe that's why these women speak to us so much. So as well as all that stuff that we're talking about there's also some really practical reasons why she's turning up as her own model. And there's no photography, obviously, available to artists of the day. They can't photograph a subject. Artists' models are expecting to be paid. And even if you're working with somebody whose pay expectations are super, super low, it's still expensive to pay them. There's a practical reason.
It's a business decision.
It's a business decision. And of course, you're always there. You always have your own image. You know it best, and it's always free. There's another reason that the National Gallery puts across, which if you could read this quote here.
Imagine if it wasn't free. That would be very Black Mirror. That you'd have to pay for your own reflection.
Oh, God.
So the National Gallery say, quote, Artemisia used her own image frequently in works she produced in Florence. New to the city and keen to demonstrate her talent, she may have painted such pictures in a conscious act of self-promotion, unquote. I think that makes perfect sense. I think all these decisions just tell me that she's business savvy. This
is it. She's actually thinking about how am I going to make this a profitable, successful industry.
She's on her own now. She's left the house. She's left, the comfort. And
she's savvy. And I think that's incredible. She used her own image plenty. She was a prophetess. She was a lute player. She was in the images above. We can see a lot of her personal story reflected in those images. Another example of that is probably her most famous work, which is a painting called Judith slaying Holofernes.
Great title.
And that's right. It's a big hitter. It's from the Bible, the old Bible. Yeah. And it is a gruesome one. It's a woman beheading a man, a general, who was staying, I believe, in her guest house, and he had threatened to sack the city that she lives in. She's a widow. She has resolved to murder him. And this painting depicts the murder happening right in front of our eyes. So
Bible is gory, isn't it?
It is super gory. There's two versions of it in the mix here. And I've got one is by the artist Caravaggio, who was a friend and mentor of Gentileschi. And then second, I have her version. So for comparison purposes, I mean, it's not unusual for all the reasons we've talked about for multiple artists to cover the same scene. And it gives us such a cool way to compare how these different artists think and how they see the world. You look at Caravaggio's Judith, and she's sort of disgusted and she's pulling back. She's recoiling. She's horrified. Gentileschi's Judith, she looks pissed off. He's fighting back in Gentileschi. She's not flinching from the task. She's covered in blood, but they are getting the job done. And this is an example of that drama that the quote from the beginning talked about. The drama of the scene, the drama of the lighting technique that they use, the chiaroscuro with the strong light, deep shade, all these emotional elements, the movement of the piece, the biblical subjects. It gives her an opportunity to showcase her worldview. Yeah. So all of that being said, we'll talk about one more painting in a moment, and that is Susanna and the Elders. And this is where Catherine Ryan comes to mind, because
yes, I forgot about Catherine.
Catherine Ryan, in her show Glitter Room, which I think was from about 2019, she talked about going to see Hamilton.
We've all done.
As we've all done. We talk about it probably too much, but obviously with great affection. I don't want to spoil the bit. So if you haven't heard it, go ahead and Google Catherine Ryan Hamilton. I think you've heard it before. But in short, what she talks about in the bit, what she sort of highlights is that the plot of Hamilton at this particular moment and the lyrics of the song that show up in this bit of the plot are just so pervasive. It's just the water we swim in. And Catherine Ryan, despite the fact that she's enjoying the play, she's fully respecting of the work, the writing, she's able to sort of step outside of it and go, wait a minute, that sucks. Like that way of looking at things is not okay. And she does it in a way, unlike what I'm doing here, that is so goddamn funny. She's amazing. So do go look it up. It's fabulous. But anyway, the reason I'm bringing it up at all is that Artemisia, to kind of verb a noun, Catherine Ryan's the painting of Susanna and the Elders. So the Liverpool Museum talks about the scene we are about to look at. Okay. And if you could read that description.
Yep. So quote, the story of Susanna and the Elders is an instructive morale tale about lust and the corruption of officials. Susanna was bathing naked, was spied upon by two elders of her tribe. When she confronted them, they threatened to blackmail her if she refused to sleep with them. Is this biblical?
Yeah.
She refused, and they accused her publicly of having committed adultery. For this, she was condemned to death. Right. Oh my God, that spiraled, didn't it?
It's so grim. It's so grim. Like, yeah, see, let a woman have a bath. Just stay out of it. It's got nothing to do with you.
That really escalated.
That's kind of the point, right? Because that scene is painted again and again and again in classical painting, probably because it gave these artists, these men, a chance to depict female nudity and still maintain the moral high ground. Look, it's in the Bible. I'm just saying what's in the Bible.
Oh my God.
It gets the blood boiling, especially because usually in these depictions, you've got Susanna kind of like flirty.
Coy.
It's horrific. No, it's horrific. And it's so not what that story is about, but it's kind of, it's just wild. So Artemisia, technically it's a wonderful painting, but what really catches your interest is that Catherine Ryan thing, that she's taking a different perspective. So there's a quote here. She challenges it. Could you give us this quote from the Crimson talking about her depiction of that scene?
Yes. A frightened Susanna twists away from the men in clear distress as they leer over her, attempting to coerce her into sex. The work is triumphant of Baroque art and an early example of Gentileschi's skill in communicating feminist themes to the viewers clearly and powerfully, unquote. That's good. So she's kind of given the woman, Susanna, a valid response.
And a realistic response, I think. It's not just, here, I can paint some boobies. She's showing how a person would feel to be put in that position.
Be middle finger these at them, go away you creep, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Disgust and outrage and fear. And then the shamefulness of it, or the person who's stepping out of the bounds. It's the elders. It's where it belongs. And it was the point of the friggin' story in the first place. Actually, not that I'm a biblical scholar, but Jesus, you don't need to be that astute to pick up on that. So despite of this defiant outlook and these quietly radical themes in her painting, somehow we see incredible career progression from her. So Yeah, there's a quote here, if you care to give it, that talks a little bit about her career.
Yeah, quote, in 1615 to 1616, at age 23, Artemisia becomes the first female member of the Accademia dell'Arti di Senar in Florence. Between 1613 to 1618, the period in which this honour was bestowed, it is interesting to know that she also bore 5 children, unquote. So we're climbing and we're birthing. We're doing it all, as it were.
Doing it all. And that is, I cannot help but wonder
how.
Yeah. Like, what has she managed to put into place that allowed her to keep working? What sacrifices is she making that allow her to keep working when many other artists, like Judith Leister, had to take a step back simply for the fact that there was no other way for them at that time once they had children? But whatever it was, however she pulled it off, whatever she gave up in order to do it, she made a commercial success of her work. Yeah. She even got to a level where she was kind of celebrity. She was invited to London in 1638 by Charles I to work on portraits and commissions. Oh, like you do. And once that happened, she was invited to the royal courts in Madrid and Vienna. She continued to have professional success in her lifetime until her death in Naples.
Isn't it crazy that we don't know her name? Yeah, she was that successful. The King of England commissioned her directly. How do we know her name? That's insane. And I think high society. Yeah.
The fact that these things get lost. Her work, like a lot of other women artists, was sort of lazily misattributed to prolific males who worked in a similar style at a similar time. So in her case, a lot of her work was attributed to Caravaggio. But in the long run, and with a lot of effort on the part of catalogers and academics and historians, her career was unearthed, and now her work is correctly attributed and hanging in major galleries all around the world, as it was all along, just
with her name under it now.
Now we actually see it with the correct name attributed. So I have a final quote here, if you would give it, and it talks about the lasting impact of her work per the Portrait Society of Atlanta.
Quote, of approximately 60 paintings remaining today, 40 are dominated from the viewpoint of the female figure. Artemisia took the lowly maids, the unnoticed servants, and the victims, often painted by the men of the day, and turned them into brilliant trailblazers, strong subjects, and survivors. Unquote. Oh, well, good.
I know. It's fabulous. And so lasting and sort of respected is that impact, that there is an artwork called The Dinner Party by Judy Chicago. I think you've seen a picture of it, haven't you?
I've seen it, but it's only come into my conscious in the past few days. But I tell you what, I keep thinking about it. Like, I think
it would be worth seeing for sure.
Yes.
Where did we discover it? It's like in the Bronx or something, in the Bronx Museum.
It's just a bit scary, but maybe in 2025.
Maybe in 3-4 years time.
Yeah.
Well, when indeed. At some point, it would be lovely to go and see it.
We can.
So for people who haven't seen it before, what we're talking about is this massive installation artwork. It's a huge triangular dinner table, and there are 39 dinner place settings around this table that celebrate women from all different spheres, fictional and real, of historical significance. So I like to think of it as the dinner party version of our podcast. And Vicky, you pointed out to me something I didn't know, which is that on the floor tiles underneath the piece, there are 111 or something further names.
The names embossed in, so even more names. And
how incredible.
I feel like that's our next 100 episodes done, basically.
Right, it's just going to be like an index. We're just going to hit it. Gentileschi is in there alongside Boccaccio, a name I cannot pronounce, Budici, but it, Boadicea?
Right the first time. Oh, I don't know. I know what you mean.
One
I
of
know
them.
who they are.
One of them. Here's one I'm safer with: Emily Dickinson, Eleanor of Aquitaine, Sojourner Truth.
Yes.
And here's Artemisia. And it just shows how revolutionary the simple act of painting from a woman's perspective was. Simple, but so powerful, a lasting value.
Yes.
And whether it's the comedy of Catherine Ryan, the art of Artemisia Gentileschi, what is being done here is that we are being shown that we can keep an eye open to the ways that we are just sort of accepting, oh, that's just how things are.
Yeah.
And they're inviting us to attack that, to paint things, to make jokes, to, I'm going to use her quote, to show the whole illustrious world what a woman can do.
Oh, beautiful.
I love it. It makes me want to kick down an iron door. I love it.
Beautiful ending. I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to this episode of She Changed History. If you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, and comment below. Find us on our socials, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. If you've got any ideas of women you'd like us to cover in a future episode, please comment on the socials or email us at shechangedhistory@gmail.com. Catch you next time.